Hello and welcome to this presentation on roles, responsibilities and skills of a coach. The first role is being an innovator. This means a new or original way of doing something. As a coach, you will need to search for new techniques in order to enhance performance. The benefits of an innovator as a coach is that they can develop new techniques that will improve performance and benefit the athlete. This can improve their chance of winning and beating their opponent if their technique is more effective. It also prevents boredom in training and increases the enjoyment of the sport or activity. There are disadvantages to having an innovator as a coach, as they may change their tactics or techniques too many times. This can make training less effective and efficient and inhibit the athlete's progression and affect their performance. Furthermore, some people, particularly elite athletes, are set in their ways, as they may have been learning that technique throughout their career, and this may have been for a very long time, and will not like the change and have to be encouraged to do so. Also, too many ideas can be confusing to individuals. Famous examples of major innovations in sport include the new technique used in high jump. The new technique is called the Fosbury flop, which involves going over with your back to the bar, whereas the previous widely used technique involved going face down over the bar. Another famous innovation is Spain's tiki-taka style of football, which involves lots of passing and playing the ball on the floor. This won them the World Cup and European Championships in 2010 and 2012 respectively. As an innovator is more effective at different age groups and different abilities. Having an innovator as a coach is not very effective within young age groups, as they may not understand and may just be getting to grips with the sport. For example, having innovative analytical software with beginners who are just learning the sport is inappropriate and a waste of time. They may also just do it for the enjoyment and exercise and are not playing just to win. Different abilities can have an effect. For example, elite athletes versus non-elite athletes will have a major impact. Elite athletes have a greater understanding of the game or sport and will be able to grasp new concepts due to their experience and ability, whereas non-elite athletes may not have that ability. In a team sport, an innovator is more likely to involve tactics than the team as a whole. For example, an innovator in football may be the manager who changes to 3 at the back as opposed to a more common 4, therefore changes the shape of the team, whereas an innovator in an individual sport will be more focused on technique and is more likely to change the specific techniques and how an individual performs. For example, the change of technique in high jump. This is an example of an innovator, a good and a bad innovator. As you can see, a good innovator will use an appropriate number of innovations, for example changing it just once, which is effective, whereas an ineffective innovator will continue to change it and maybe cause the individual to be confused. The next role is a friend. As an athlete and a coach spend considerable amounts of time together, then a friendship may develop. A further bond develops when the athlete and coach share positive and negative experience throughout their time together. During the developing of this relationship, the coach will learn more about the athlete and their personality. The coach can use this knowledge to help them and support them in developing an effective training plan based on their personality. The characteristics of a friend as a coach include supporting the athlete and giving honest feedback in order to help the athlete improve their performance. Other characteristics include being kind, encouraging and loyal. The benefits of being a friend as a coach are that it becomes easier to talk and communicate as the athlete becomes more comfortable with the coach. The coach will also learn about the athlete's personality, and they can use this to get the most out of the player and come up with the most effective training plans and tactics. Due to knowing their personality better, it becomes easier to deliver criticism, as you can put it in a way that they will take on board. The potential problems of having a coach act as a friend is that if you become too close, it can be seen as inappropriate. Therefore, it's very important to maintain boundaries. Sports such as tennis, you're more likely to have your coach as a friend, as they are often in one-to-one sessions and spend a lot of time together just one-on-one. Additionally, if the player and athlete are similar ages, they are more likely to get along, and form a closer bond compared to a much older coach and a much younger child athlete. Also, in individual sports such as tennis, the coach is more likely to act like a friend towards the athlete, as they spend more one-to-one time together, whereas team sports you're less likely to form that close bond, as the coach has the same relationship with maybe 15 or 20 other, or however many in your squad have that same relationship. So it's unlikely you to get as close. Here demonstrated is how a coach should act and how they shouldn't. A bad example is just not maintaining the boundaries. For example, going out together and doing stuff outside of the sport. Whereas a good friend as a coach would maintain those boundaries and say no to inappropriate behaviour or next is a trainer. The role of a trainer is to allow the body to perform at its maximum in order to get the best results from the athlete. Whilst the coach who is a trainer has to be aware of the physical, technical and tactical demands of the specific sport, the athlete's physical state is their main focus. However, they need to be aware of technical and tactical in order to know how to train and how much to train it. A trainer needs to have a range of activities to use to develop the athlete's ability to perform at their optimum. They also need a good knowledge of health, fitness and training principles. As a trainer, a coach should be able to design and implement programs that are appropriate for the athlete and reflect the sport they compete in. When designing these plans, trainers need to take age, ability, interest and experience, among other things, into account. The most common form of a trainer is a fitness instructor. The majority of sports have trainers, but generally only at much higher or elite levels. At lower or grassroots levels, then you would not find trainers as part of the management team, as there's not enough funding and The advantages of being a trainer is that it allows the athlete to perform at their maximum ability and be the most prepared for a game they possibly can. This will positively affect performance and therefore the results, which helps the athlete improve. The disadvantages of being a trainer include that you aren't involved with tactics or techniques of particular sports, so you cannot help develop the player's skill. You may think you are, but if you're not qualified then you can't, especially at the elite level. Also, different levels require trainers. For example, at elite level, a trainer will make a massive difference and may be the difference between winning and losing, as the margins are much smaller and everything counts. However, at a much lower level, the manager tends to be all the roles combined, and it is unlikely a trainer would make a huge difference anyway, as other lifestyle habits may affect them. Elite athletes will train and eat properly, and that's what makes the margins much smaller. Additionally, age can make a difference on whether you have a trainer or whether a trainer would be effective. For example, a trainer for much younger kids would be inappropriate and ineffective, as they would not be able to complete many of the activities, and also may cause them to lose interest in the sport if it's taken too seriously. It would also result in many kids losing interest in the sport. Here we have good and bad examples of a trainer again. A good trainer will tell the athlete what to eat, have lots of knowledge based in nutrition, and will effectively help the athlete train. A bad trainer would have no knowledge of nutrition, not really know what they're talking about, and not cause the athlete to become better. For example, telling them to eat fast food would obviously be an ineffective trainer. A role model. Being a role model as part of a coach involves setting examples and representing the particular sport you coach. When leading a session, a role model is setting an example and representing that particular sport. A good role model will demonstrate appropriate behaviour and use appropriate language with athletes and participants at all times. Coaches should also accept responsibility for the conduct of the athletes they coach and encourage. Coaches should also accept responsibility for the conduct of the athletes they coach and encourage positive and non-discriminatory behaviour. Effective role models also wear appropriate clothing at all times and have appropriate equipment. Furthermore, a coach will try to sell sessions to athletes and be enthusiastic, as the more enthusiastic a coach is about the sport, the more enthusiastic the athlete is likely to become and therefore come back to another session. It will also encourage lots more people to play the sport, which will improve the level of the sport and potentially the interest. All sports have role models, however not all athletes at the top of their game act as role models, and not all coaches act as role models or behave the way they should. For example, a Sunday League football manager often shouts and swears at referees, which is not how a coach should behave, as this is setting a bad example, and their players will therefore follow it. The advantages of being a role model are that they inspire athletes and encourage participation in their particular sport. The disadvantages are that they may make the participants feel intimidated and not good enough, and this can be off-putting for people, especially beginners. Also, an athlete has to set an example at all times, therefore there can be pressure on them to behave, as they can't mess up. And a role model as a coach is vital for young kids, as these are the examples kids will start to follow when they play the sport. Adults are less likely to be influenced as they are more set in their ways. An example of a bad role model is diving in football. A lot of kids follow their role models in football, and they have a lot of influence over their children. So when they see players diving, they're likely to copy this, which is bad for the sport. Here's the example of a good and bad role model. Just helping someone up, encouraging them and acting appropriately on the left, and then on the right, laughing at them and maybe picking on people and just not setting a good example that other kids will follow as a bad example. Next we have the responsibilities. Firstly is transport. A good example is organising a minibus and making sure you have appropriate licence and stuff like that. A bad example is driving your own car, taking kids there, or asking them to make their own way there, especially without parents. This is inappropriate.